Oakland, you go to West Hollywood, you go to San Francisco, they don't have a multitude of these dispensaries. They're all regulated, they're all controlled, it's working real well. It's Los Angeles that was asleep at the switch, and they're horrified when they turn around 3 years later and see, hey, people have taken advantage of the system. I mean, big surprise. Where were they? But at any rate, that whole problem would go away. Number 5, the entire hemp industry, which we have just touched on, would be revitalized. I could talk for an hour about the benefits of industrial hemp. Suffice it to say that you can get 4 times the amount of paper pulp from an acre of hemp as you can an acre of trees. 4 times the amount of paper pulp from an acre of hemp as an acre of trees. It takes 20 years to grow the trees and 1 season of about 6 to 7, 8 months to grow the hemp. We could revitalize the Northwest United States with regard to hemp. And our merchants today are using hemp. You've seen it, you know, backpacks and clothes and sandals and all the rest of that stuff. But you know where they get their raw materials? They import the hemp from those radical countries like Canada and England, for heaven's sake. So we're penalizing our merchants. We're penalizing our agricultural interests. It's about $1 billion a year business today in Canada. They're very appreciative. Okay, so we could revitalize that. It would be good. So those are 5 things that I think everybody would agree upon. Now there's the 6th. Let me do that and then I'll come to you. The 6th issue is, how many of you had classes of economics? I hope everybody raises their hands. You cannot be an educated person without understanding supply and demand and the rest of this. So please, if you have an opportunity, you know, just get into this. What would happen if the demand remains the same and marijuana no longer is illegal and we cut the price in half, which you have to do to chase the illegal dealers out of business? What's going to happen to usage? And the answer is, all things being equal, usage will increase. I understand that. But all things are not going to be equal. First of all, we can talk again about Holland by making it boring. A lot of people use it because it's illegal. Just make it boring, mundane, and the rest. And after 6 months, 12, 18 months, whatever, I think that the usage would come down after the novelty wears off. And number 2, we would start experiencing what I call the Portugal effect. And I want to talk to you about Portugal. It's widely unknown, and this is a shock, because Portugal around the year 2001 looked around and found that they had the largest drug problems of any country in the European Union. They decided, wait a minute, we've got to be able to do better than that. So they impaneled, they were really smart, they impaneled a group of non-political experts. Non-political experts. And this commission came back to them with 2 really important findings. The first was, we have lots of people in our country today who have problem drug issues that are afraid of their own government. Why? Obviously, they bring their problems to the government will punish them. So they take their problems underground. Number 2, the government is using so many of its resources to investigate, prosecute, incarcerate nonviolent drug offenders, they don't have any money left for drug treatment. So they put in a program to turn that around. And in the year 2001, Portugal decriminalized all drugs. Why don't we know this? By the way, Holland decriminalized drugs too. What's the difference between legalization and decriminalization? There's really quite a big difference. That people use the terms interchangeably and they shouldn't. Decriminalization means it's still illegal to buy, use, possess, sell any of these drugs, but as long as people stay within very well-known general guidelines, usually with regard to quantity, but also with regard to quality, place of sale, the police are instructed in writing to look the other way and leave them alone. Now, I'm a judge. I believe in having reasonable laws, and I believe in enforcing those laws, so conceptually I have a problem with that. Nevertheless, it's working pretty well. So, they found that by decriminalizing these drugs in Portugal, now the people were coming to them in abnormally large numbers. So at 2007, the Cato Institute took all of the statistics, took them about 2 years to digest it, and they came out with a report in 2009, several months ago now, and said, you know something? What happened to drug usage in the country of Portugal? And the answer is pretty much nothing. It did not go up. Pretty much, if anything, it went down like half a point. So So that put to the lie all of these claims by these fearmongers, as I would call them. If we were to decriminalize drugs, we'd become a nation of drug zombies, or that sort of silly stuff. In fact, it's insulting. Drug usage pretty much remained the same, but problem drug usage went down by 50%. Why? For exactly those reasons. People were no longer afraid of their own government. They would come to the government for help, and when they did so, the government would have money to use for drug treatment, and problem drug usage has gone down 50%. That's a good thing. Yes?
Excuse me.
I get choked up on this too.
With regard to the proposal you suggested, which would still make it illegal to provide drugs to children 20...
Marijuana, yes.
Doesn't that then retain many of the problems of prohibition with illegal markets and so on?
The question is, come on, Gray, get real. He was much too generous to say this, but come on. If we were to pass this initiative, wouldn't we, because it would still be illegal for kids under 21 to use or to have transferred to them, isn't that still a black market problem, a still drug prohibition problem? And the answer is absolutely right. Yes, it is. I think people would be much more prepared to enforce that. And I think, anytime you're going to have some components be illegal, you're going to have a black market. I'm not prepared. I don't think anyone is prepared to open it up completely. Having said that, what about alcohol? What about Italy? What about France? Children grow up in those countries pretty much using watered down wine with meals and all the rest of that stuff. And they have far less problem with alcoholism in those countries than we do here. If I were king, I would actually do that with regard to beer and wine for adults and for children, and just allow them to grow up with it, and then it wouldn't be any big deal. The stronger alcohol I'd probably keep illegal, but one way or the other. But you're right. Yes, and we have to recognize that. I still feel that we'd be a lot better off, but the answer, of course, is yes, yes.
But how much is it if you allow citizenry to actually take these responsibilities upon themselves? Who needs government for almost anything other than to keep real bad people who murder off the street?
I'm a libertarian. I'm proud of that.
Common law crimes, and that's the only reason you need the government.
I think we have much too much. Look, I've been a judge for 25 years. I assure you we do not need more laws. I mean, we really do have a reflex that anything that goes wrong. Remember when Princess Diana died? We had movement in Congress to pass these paparazzi federal laws. I mean, come on. So what we need is common sense. What we need is individual responsibility. We do need government. I mean, all libertarians will agree we need government, with police, and we need armies and a banking system and the rest, but certainly by no means do we need so much. Directly on that point, it makes as much sense to me to put this gifted actor Robert Downey Jr. in jail for his heroin problem, and he will always have one. He's doing pretty well now. But he will always be a recovering heroin addict. He will always have that urge, that proclivity. Never recovered heroin addict, always recovering. But it makes as much sense to me to put him in jail for his heroin problem as it would have Betty Ford in jail for her alcohol problem. It's the same thing, isn't it? Betty Ford, of course, was the wife of President Gerald Ford. It's a medical issue. And bring these people closer to medical professionals that can work with them and help them. But Robert Downey Jr., Betty Ford, you or I, drive a motor vehicle impaired by, you name it, alcohol, marijuana, heroin, cocaine.
Texting.
Bring them to me. Texting. Bring them to me. That is and should be a crime. What's the difference? Because now by their actions, they're putting our safety at risk. That's a legitimate criminal justice function. But as far as I'm concerned, as a libertarian or otherwise, the government has as much right to control what I, as an adult, put into my body as it does what I put into my mind. It's none of their business. So that's another secret. First secret is prohibition never works as well as regulation and control. The second reason is equally important. Hold people accountable for their actions, not what they put into their bodies. I did that very successfully. I'm proud to say that in 1984, I put in probably the first drug court in the history of the United States of America for alcohol. We screened out alcoholics. I called them high-risk problem drinkers, but they know what we meant. I screened them out on the first offense first offense of driving under the influence or otherwise. And we put them on a program. Program, in effect, took them off alcohol. I told